This happened about 3 months ago, but the emotional hangover is still very real. For context, I work at a large tech company that prides itself on being fun. Think beanbags, kombucha on tap, and HR-approved memes in the bathrooms. Every quarter, they organize a team-building event. These are usually harmless things like trivia or Zoom Pictionary, but this time they decided to do something epic. So our HR team rolled out an all-company Slack-integrated scavenger hunt. It was a big deal. They hyped it up for weeks with teaser GIFs and vague announcements like, "Get ready to hack your way to glory." The event had a custom-built Slack bot named Huntar that dished out riddles, clues, and interactive challenges. Each correct answer got your team points, and the top 3 departments would get massive bonuses and a shout-out during our next company-wide meeting. I'm talking an extra $2,000 for each person and a company-paid team trip to a weekend retreat. Now, I'm the senior DevOps engineer for my department. I know our systems like the back of my hand, and when I saw that Slack bot, my brain immediately switched into how can I game this mode. Not because I wanted to ruin anything, but because I love solving problems. And okay, yes, maybe I also really wanted that bonus. The hunt started at 10 a.m. sharp. Our team, called Prodigy, we didn't choose the name, marketing did, was doing well, but not great. After the first hour, we were sitting at 9th place out of 20 teams. The clues were tough, the bot was unforgiving, and I could feel the tension rising in our Zoom breakout room. Everyone was joking about giving up and just going back to work. And that's when I made the choice that led to disaster. I opened up the developer console and started inspecting the bot's API calls. It wasn't hard to find, just a few layers deep in the payload. There it was, a URL hitting an internal endpoint with the challenge ID, user token, and the bot's response logic in JSON format. I didn't do anything malicious, no injecting data or brute forcing, but I found that the upcoming clues were all preloaded in the bot's local cache. They were stored as JSON objects, including the expected correct answers. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like I'd just uncovered the company's nuclear codes. I had a full list of future questions and answers, just sitting there. I told myself, okay. Just use it once. Just to catch up. I fed the next answer to the bot and bam, we jumped to 5th place. Everyone cheered. People were excited again. I told myself it was harmless. That I was just optimizing. And then I used it again. And again. And again. Within an hour, we were at the top of the leaderboard by a ridiculous margin. We were answering hard riddles in seconds while other teams took 10 to 15 minutes. Our project manager even joked that we must have a psychic on payroll. At one point, the bot even DM'd our team channel, "Wow, Prodigy is on fire," with a dancing emoji. I should have stopped. But it felt like being the kid who had the test answers hidden in his desk. I couldn't resist. By the end of the day, we'd won. First place by over 200 points. Everyone was celebrating in Slack. There were emojis flying everywhere. Someone made a meme with my face on Gandalf's body holding the Huntar bot like a staff. HR was ecstatic. Our VP joined the call to say we'd redefined what cross-functional synergy could achieve. I should have been basking in glory. But my stomach was doing Olympic-level flips. I felt like I'd snuck into the Olympics with rollerblades and won gold in speed skating. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw JSON. 3 days later, I got a calendar invite titled Compliance Review Mandatory from an HR partner I'd never spoken to. My heart sank so fast I'm surprised it didn't cause a seismic event. The meeting was brutal. They'd noticed something irregular with the bot logs. Apparently, the dev team had added a security flag to detect abnormal usage of the API. Turns out my innocent poking around had triggered a series of alerts. Not only that, but they had my Slack user ID tied to a series of suspicious requests within milliseconds of challenge releases. They'd traced everything. When I asked if anyone else knew, they said no. They were giving me a chance to come clean first. So I did. I told them everything. How I found the cash, how I used it, and how no one else on my team was involved. It was all me. They let me sit in silence for a long, long time. Then they said the phrase that haunts me still: this could be considered a fireable offense under our data ethics policy. I didn't get fired. But it was close. Real close. They made me sign a written warning, mandated ethics training, and docked my next bonus. But the worst part? They publicly revoked our win and disqualified our entire department. They didn't name names, but everyone knew. The mood in our group Slack channel dropped from party balloons to a wake in about 10 minutes. People stopped talking to me. The VP who had praised us never responded to my emails again. Our project manager got pulled into meetings she wouldn't talk about, and eventually got moved to another department. Worst of all, we didn't just lose the bonus, we lost trust. My Gandalf meme got deleted. Replaced by a cold, empty silence. Since then, I've been trying to rebuild. I've apologized to my team. Some have forgiven me, others haven't said a word. I've kept my head down, done my job, and promised myself I'll never try to be clever with internal tools again. Because nothing wipes the smug off your face faster than watching a Slack emoji party turn into a digital funeral. So yeah. TIFU by hacking my company's scavenger hunt bot and accidentally becoming the villain of the quarter. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by accidentally joining a cult while trying to get over my ex a few months ago. My long-term girlfriend and I broke up. It wasn't dramatic or toxic, but it was one of those gut-wrenching, soul-crushing splits where everything just quietly dies over time. After 6 years together, we realized we'd grown into completely different people who still loved each other but couldn't be together anymore. I didn't handle it well. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping, and my friends were getting increasingly worried. So naturally, I decided to do what every self-respecting person does after a breakup: join a gym and reinvent myself. Except I didn't actually join a gym. That would have made sense. Instead, I got lured into something called Elevation Dynamics, which I thought was a CrossFit-style fitness group. Their flyers promised total mind-body alignment, reintegration with your primal self, and communal progress through hardship. I know, red flags. But in my emotional state, it sounded like exactly what I needed: pain, sweat, and distraction. They met in this nondescript warehouse on the edge of town, the kind of place you'd expect to see in a movie where someone's kidnapped. But inside, it looked more like a yoga studio mixed with a doomsday prepper's bunker. Everyone was barefoot, wearing matching black clothing, and there were no mirrors. Just candles. So many candles. The leader, or facilitator, was this lean, bald dude named Kai. He had this serene, almost hypnotic way of speaking, and his presence was oddly calming. The first session wasn't exercise at all. It was emotional purging through sound. Picture 30 grown adults screaming into the void, then sobbing, then laughing maniacally, all while a guy plays a didgeridoo in the background. I should have left. I almost left. But Kai locked eyes with me and said, "Let it rise, brother. Let the pain transmute." And God help me, I cried harder than I ever have in my life. The thing is, it felt good. Insane, but cathartic. I went back. Week 2 was somatic unbinding. We basically rolled around on the floor for an hour making animal noises. Week 3 involved a communal cleansing, which turned out to be a cold group shower under a leaking rain barrel behind the warehouse. I stayed. I kept staying. My friends asked what I was doing with my time, and I told them I joined a men's mental health initiative. It sounded less embarrassing. By month 2, I'd made friends. These weren't your typical gym bros either, they were weirdly open, like, emotionally naked all the time. We'd cry mid-hug and then talk about our deepest childhood traumas over raw kale smoothies. And I felt better. Lighter. It didn't even seem strange anymore that Kai had us reciting mantras in an unknown language or that we had to submit our phones before each session to sever the digital tether. Then came the weekend. Every third month, they did a 72-hour retreat. No phones, no clocks, no leaving. I was nervous, but I trusted these people now. I carpooled with a guy named River, yep, really, who said it changed his life the last time. We arrived at this huge property in the woods, no signs, just a long gravel road ending at a lodge surrounded by tents and fire pits. The first night was all chanting and dancing. No sleep. Second day was fasting and solo silence in the forest. I spent 10 hours sitting on a stump trying not to hallucinate. On the third day, we did the ashing ceremony. This is where it all went sideways. They had this giant carved idol, like 10 feet tall, vaguely humanoid but with antlers and too many arms. Kai told us it was a representation of our collective self. We had to smear our faces with ash, then each person stepped forward and released their burden by whispering it to the idol. People were sobbing, screaming, convulsing. I started to panic. When it was my turn, I walked up, leaned in, and instead of whispering, I muttered, "I don't think I should be here." Kai heard me. He stepped forward, looking disappointed. He placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Then why did you come this far?" Now here's the kicker, the guy next to him suddenly pulled out a knife. Not like a kitchen knife, a ceremonial-looking blade, curved, with symbols etched into it. I froze. Kai raised his hand and said, "He's not ready." Everyone nodded solemnly, like this happened all the time. I didn't sleep that night. I faked a stomach bug and convinced River to drive me back to town early. I told him I'd had a breakthrough and needed to go process it alone. Once I got home, I Googled everything, elevation dynamics, Kai, the retreat property. Nothing. The group didn't exist online. No website. No socials. The address for the warehouse was listed as vacant. I checked Google Maps history, no record of where we went. It freaked me out so much I called one of my friends, finally told him everything. He just sighed and said, "Dude, you joined a cult." Since then, I've been trying to piece everything together. I haven't heard from anyone in the group. No calls. No messages. I went back to the warehouse a week later, it was completely empty. Like, abandoned. As if no one had ever been there. But the weirdest part? Last week, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a black shirt, folded perfectly, with a small card that said, "You were closer than you think. We're still here." I've been sleeping with the lights on since. TIFU by hosting a dinner party and accidentally dosing everyone with edibles, including my boss, a vegan yogi, and someone's grandma, so this happened last weekend and I've only just now pieced everything together. I, 32M, decided to host a fancy-ish dinner party for about 12 people, some coworkers, a few friends, a couple of people I didn't know super well, they were guests of guests, and one person I wish I hadn't met at all, more on him later. I'd recently moved into a bigger place and thought it'd be a fun, classy way to celebrate adulthood. With matching plates and cloth napkins and overpriced wine I googled the name of so I could pronounce it correctly. The theme of the evening was plant-based Mediterranean. That's important. No meat, no dairy, lots of hummus, roasted vegetables, couscous, that kind of thing. I'd spent the entire day preparing, cooking, cleaning, setting up a playlist that would say I'm cultured without sounding like I tried too hard. I even got candles. Real ones. Now, here's where things start to go downhill. My friend Liam, who I've known since college and who has a notorious talent for both chaos and making really good weed edibles, had recently dropped off a Tupperware of his famous olive oil. It's infused with THC and meant to be used sparingly, a few drops per serving. It's labeled, handwritten, of course, but it looks exactly like a normal bottle of fancy olive oil. You can see where this is going. I'm rushing around the kitchen making dressings and dips, and I remember I have that extra virgin olive oil Liam gave me. I drizzle it liberally over everything. Like I'm the Salt Bae of infused oils. I use it in the salad dressing, on the grilled eggplant, over the couscous. It's in literally every dish. I didn't realize what I'd done until about an hour later. At first, things were fine. People were eating, laughing, complimenting the food. My boss Julia, 45F, who I invited in a panic after she overheard me talking about the dinner at work, was complimenting the depth of flavor in the roasted red pepper dip. My buddy Jeremy was double-dipping pita chips like he was being timed. Everything was going suspiciously well. Then, about 45 minutes after dinner, the vibe shifted. It started with the grandma. I don't even know whose grandma she was. She was this sweet little lady named Eleanor who someone brought as their +1 because her bingo night got cancelled. She was sitting quietly in the corner with a glass of wine, and then suddenly she started giggling. Not normal giggling, full-on, snort laughing at nothing. Like, she was staring at a coaster and just losing it. Everyone kind of paused, looked over, and then shrugged it off. Then Julia, my boss, stood up mid-conversation and said, "I think the walls are breathing," and sat right back down, looking absolutely fascinated by the texture of her cloth napkin. At this point I'm like, okay, something's wrong. Maybe someone brought edibles as a joke? Maybe the wine was off? That's when Liam, yes, that Liam, looks at me across the table and mouths, "Did you use the oil?" I blinked at him. He mouthed again, slower, "The oil." Cue internal screaming. People are now at various stages of high. Jeremy is lying on the rug, saying he's sinking into the earth. Julia is rubbing her napkin against her face like it's a puppy. Eleanor has taken off her shoes and is humming an improvised jazz melody about bread. And one guy, I think his name was Brent, a yoga instructor who claimed he'd never done a drug in his life, is pacing the kitchen muttering, "I'm too aware of my knees." Why am I aware of my knees? I pull Liam into the hallway and whisper-yell at him. He's trying not to laugh and failing miserably. "How much oil did you use?" he asks. "All of it." I whisper-scream. His face drops. Apparently, the oil was strong. Like, several servings per teaspoon strong. And I had poured it over 12 full plates like I was auditioning for a cooking show. At this point, it's too late to do anything. People are high. Deeply, profoundly high. I start trying to manage the situation like a cruise director on a ship that's slowly sinking. I dim the lights. I put on ambient music. I hand out water like I'm in the Sahara. I find Eleanor trying to call her cat on the TV remote. The worst part? Julia starts crying. Not dramatic sobbing, just silent tears while she stares at the flame of a candle like she's witnessing the birth of the universe. I sit next to her and gently ask if she's okay. She turns to me and whispers, "I've been mean to my intern." I told her her font choices were juvenile. I tell her it's going to be okay. She thanks me by petting my head. Meanwhile, Brent the yogi has curled into a child's pose under my dining table and is chanting something in Sanskrit. Someone else, I think her name was Tara, keeps asking if we're in a simulation. My playlist has run out and is now playing nature sounds, which honestly kind of helped. After about 3 hours of this, people start to stabilize. Liam and I make toast for everyone, and that seems to ground things a bit. Julia writes a long apology email to her intern from my couch. Eleanor is watching birds on YouTube and clapping. Brent finally stops talking about his knees. By midnight, most people had sobered up enough to leave. I insisted on calling everyone Ubers, mostly because I didn't want a lawsuit. Julia gave me a long, slightly too intense hug and told me I was a gentle soul. Jeremy just said that was wild and fist bumped me on the way out. Eleanor hugged me and said it was the most fun she'd had since her second husband died. The aftermath? Well, Julia hasn't mentioned the dinner at work. Like, at all. Not even a sly comment. It's like a Cold War silence. I haven't seen Liam since, mostly because I'm trying not to murder him. I've also developed a fear of salad dressing. And the oil? I threw it out. With gloves. In the dumpster 2 blocks away. So yeah. That's the time I accidentally drugged my boss, a sweet old lady, and half my social circle at what was supposed to be a classy dinner party. Adulthood is going great. This happened a couple of months ago, but the ripple effects are still very much felt today, especially every time I open the fridge and see an unopened jar of honey staring at me like it's plotting its next move. So, my girlfriend, Rachel, and I have been together for almost 2 years. She's one of those people who really appreciates experiences over physical gifts, so I always try to do something memorable for her birthday. Last year, I took her on a surprise weekend glamping trip in the mountains. It was a massive win. She cried, in a good way, and I got at least a month's worth of boyfriend points. This year, I was determined to outdo myself. A few weeks before her birthday, I saw a Facebook ad for a local beekeeper for a day experience. You get to wear the whole suit, handle frames from a hive, learn about colony behavior, and even harvest your own little jar of honey. It seemed wholesome, unique, and just quirky enough to be cool. Rachel had recently gotten into sustainability and was watching a lot of documentaries about pollinators, so I figured I'd nailed it. No red flags. I booked it immediately. Now, here's where I should mention something extremely important that I forgot until it was way too late. Rachel is allergic to bees. Not just a mild swelling type of allergy. We're talking EpiPen carrying, avoid at all costs, kind of allergy. To be fair, it had only come up once, early in our relationship when we passed a bush with a bunch of bees and she jokingly told me that her kryptonite had arrived. We laughed, kissed, and moved on. I never mentally filed it under crucial medical information, which in hindsight is not ideal. Fast forward to her birthday. She wakes up to me proudly handing her a handmade beekeeper for a day invitation, complete with cartoon bees and a pun-filled note that said, "Let's be adventurous." She giggles, kisses me, and says, "This looks adorable, but you do remember I'm allergic to bees, right?" Cue the horror movie violin screech in my brain. I froze. Not a funny freeze. My soul just vacated my body freeze. I was so convinced I had planned the perfect day that the allergy detail completely vanished from my memory. I tried to play it off like I remembered but wanted to help her conquer her fear. She wasn't buying it. To her credit, she didn't flip out. Instead, she laughed and said, "Let's go anyway. I'll stay in the viewing area and take photos of you looking like a dork in the suit." I tried to convince her we could cancel and do something else, but she insisted. I figured, okay, we're being responsible. We'll keep her far from the bees. What could go wrong? Oh boy. We get to the apiary. It's this gorgeous little spot in the countryside run by an elderly couple who are way too passionate about bees. The place is serene, with buzzing hives dotting the field and that faint hum that's equal parts relaxing and ominous. We sign waivers, and I suit up. Rachel stays in the main shed, which has a mesh viewing window and is supposedly bee-proof. The instructors are kind, knowledgeable, and very excited to see a young couple interested in bees. I pretend I'm not filled with dread. Everything goes fine for the first 30 minutes. I'm outside with 3 other people, poking around hives, while Rachel stays in the shed with one of the instructors. Then it happens. One rogue bee somehow makes its way into the shed. Not even joking. Through a crack near the floor, according to the security footage we watched later. Rachel sees it and calmly tells the instructor. The woman gently tries to usher it toward the window. The bee, in true chaotic neutral fashion, flies directly at Rachel's neck. Rachel panics. She yells, backs away, trips over a stool, and slams into the table where they had a small honey sampling station set up. Jars go flying. One of them breaks. The bee, possibly thinking it's under attack, stings her on the arm. I was outside, blissfully unaware, until I heard the instructor scream, "She's been stung." Then I hear, "She's allergic." Time turned into syrup. I ran faster than I've ever moved in my life, nearly face-planting in my bee suit. I ripped off the gloves and helmet like a movie hero and sprinted into the shed. Rachel was sitting on the floor, breathing fast, red blotches blooming on her neck and chest. She had her EpiPen in her bag. I found it. I stabbed her in the thigh with trembling hands while trying not to cry or throw up. The elderly beekeepers called an ambulance. I held her hand the whole time, whispering that I was sorry like it was a prayer. The EMTs got there fast, and thankfully, the EpiPen did its job. They took her to the hospital to monitor her for a few hours, but she stabilized quickly. I sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand while she napped, covered in hives and dried honey. The nurses gave me the side eye of the century when they asked what happened, and I said, I took her to a beekeeping class. She woke up, looked at me, and said, "This birthday definitely beats glamping." Then she laughed. I cried. We're still together, somehow. She's even joked about it to friends, calling it her near-death birthday experience. I've made it up to her with about 1,000 tiny gestures since, handwritten notes, spontaneous back rubs, a literal beehive's worth of apology pastries. The kicker? The instructors were so mortified that they refunded us and gave us 3 jars of honey as a token of peace. Those jars sit in our kitchen, untouched. I can't even look at them without hearing sirens. Moral of the story, when someone tells you they're allergic to something, do not treat it like a quirky fun fact. Lock that info deep in the memory vault. TIFU by accidentally ordering 200 pounds of brisket and trying to hide it from my wife. This happened about 3 weeks ago and I'm still dealing with the aftermath. Let me start by saying I love barbecue. Like, really love it. It's not just food to me, it's a calling. I've been perfecting my smoked brisket recipe for the past 5 years. My wife, on the other hand, is more of a let's just grill some veggies and call it a day kind of person. She tolerates my meat obsession the same way people tolerate a friend's weird hobby, with mild concern, occasional encouragement, and frequent side eyes. So about a month ago, I got it into my head that I wanted to throw a brisket party. Not a dinner. A party, a big backyard smoke fest with a couple of friends, drinks, lawn chairs, music, the works. The kind of event that makes your house smell like Texas for a week. The kind of event my wife had explicitly told me not to host ever again after Ribston 2022, which ended in 3 broken lawn chairs, 1 minor grease fire, and a very drunk man peeing on our fence, we still don't know who. But I'd been good lately. Cleaned out the garage. Took her mom to that pottery class. I figured I had some husband credit in the bank. So I decided to go for it. But I had to be smart. She couldn't know until it was too late to cancel. My plan, get the brisket early, freeze it, and when the day came, surprise her with a backyard full of meat and people. What could go wrong? Well, everything. I found a meat supplier online. A Texas joint that looked legit. They had glowing reviews and a special deal, 10% off bulk orders. Perfect. I skimmed the site, found the brisket section, and saw something called Whole Packer Brisket Prime Grade. Yes, baby. That's what I needed. Now, I'm not a total idiot, I knew I needed enough brisket for about 20 people. Assuming half a pound per person, and knowing my friends are carnivorous degenerates, I figured I'd go a little heavy. Let's say 30 pounds to be safe. Here's where the foo began. Instead of selecting the number of pounds, I accidentally selected the number of units. Each brisket was between 14 to 16 pounds. I thought I was ordering 30 pounds of meat. I ordered 30 briskets. I didn't realize my mistake until 2 days later when I got a call from a freight company asking if I'd be available to receive a pallet delivery. A what now? A frozen meat shipment, sir. Says here it's 452 pounds, including packaging. My heart stopped. I felt the blood drain from my face. I thanked the guy and hung up, then immediately ran to check the order confirmation email, which, naturally, I had skimmed and deleted. Sure enough, 30 prime briskets. I panicked. Like, heart-pounding, tunnel vision, full sweat kind of panic. My wife was going to murder me. I couldn't cancel, no refunds. I couldn't return frozen meat. I couldn't store 30 briskets. Our freezer couldn't even hold 3. I considered renting a meat locker, but the cost was insane. I considered throwing a really big party, but even I don't know 200 pounds worth of meat eaters. Then, I did the dumbest thing yet. I accepted the delivery. I don't know what I was thinking. The freight guy arrived with a massive pallet wrapped in plastic. He had to use a little forklift to wheel it into our driveway. I signed for it like I was signing a death warrant. He gave me a look like, "You okay, man?" I nodded and waved him off. Then stood there, staring at this mountain of frozen meat. Now came the hard part, hiding it. We live in a regular suburban house with a 2-car garage that's already packed with tools, junk, and my smoking gear. I had about half an hour before my wife came home. I grabbed a dolly and started moving boxes into the garage, piling them behind some tarps and bins. It wasn't perfect, but it was out of sight. The smell didn't start until 3 days later. See, I didn't realize the bottom 2 boxes hadn't fully refrozen after being shipped. They were cold, but not frozen solid. And now they were slowly thawing in my garage in late March. If you've never smelled semi-rotten brisket, count your blessings. It's not like rotting garbage. It's sweeter. Wetter. Like a meat swamp. My wife noticed first. "Do you smell that?" she asked as we got out of the car. "What is that? Did something die in the garage?" I played dumb. "Maybe a raccoon got in? I'll check it later." She gave me a look. The kind of look that says, "You better not be lying because I will find out." That night, I went into the garage with a headlamp and a roll of garbage bags. I cracked open one box and almost threw up. Liquid. Brisket juice. I gagged and dry-heaved and spent the next 2 hours in the dark triple-bagging semi-liquefied beef, scrubbing the floor, and whispering apologies to the meat gods. I thought I had it under control. Until the trash guys refused to take the bags. "Too heavy," they said. And smells like something illegal. I had to bribe my neighbor to let me use his bin. He only agreed after I gave him a brisket. And that gave me an idea. I started giving briskets away. I became the beef fairy. I'd wait until dusk, then sneak around the neighborhood with a cooler, dropping briskets on porches like reverse Santa Claus. I gave one to the mailman. I donated 5 to a church fundraiser. I shipped 2 to my cousin in Colorado, they thawed en route, sorry, Dan. I sold a few to randoms on Facebook Marketplace using the alias SmokeDaddy_47. I felt like I was moving contraband. One guy asked if it was clean. I think he thought it was drugs. Eventually, the meat pile shrank. But not fast enough. Then came the confrontation. My wife found the stash. She was looking for her Christmas decorations and pulled back a tarp. Her scream shook the walls. "What is this?" I tried to explain. I really did. But there's no way to casually say I accidentally ordered a 1/4 ton of brisket and was hiding it in the garage like some meat goblin. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. The party, obviously, was cancelled. Instead, we've been slowly working our way through the remaining meat. Every meal, brisket. Brisket tacos. Brisket stew. Brisket lasagna. Brisket smoothies, don't ask. My cholesterol is through the roof. My dog won't even eat it anymore. He just gives me this look like, seriously, again? So yeah. I messed up. Don't online shop while half-drunk and overly confident in your freezer space. On the bright side, if the apocalypse hits, we'll be the most smoked protein-prepared house on the block. TIFU last weekend, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. For context, I work in a mid-sized office in a decently competitive field, let's call it tech-adjacent, and I've been there about a year. I'm still the new guy in the sense that I haven't fully proven myself to everyone yet. My boss, Greg, not his real name, is one of those weirdly intense guys who still somehow pulls off being charming. He drives a Tesla, drinks green juice, uses the word synergy unironically, and owns a parrot named Captain. Captain is an African grey. If you've never heard of that species, they're basically the Einstein of birds. They live forever, they mimic everything they hear, and they know when you're mocking them. Greg brings this bird into the office sometimes, claiming it helps him de-stress. The thing sits on a perch by his desk and mimics conference calls. One time I swear it said circle back in my exact tone of voice and I had a full-on existential crisis. Anyway, Greg was going on a weekend retreat with his wife and some executive mindfulness coach and needed someone to watch Captain. He asked around, and somehow I, in my eternal thirst to be seen as a team player, said yes. I figured, how hard can a bird be? Friday evening, Greg comes to my apartment with Captain in a travel cage, a bag of supplies, and a laminated instruction sheet. This bird has a schedule, specific feeding times, certain phrases you're supposed to say to him, who's a good captain? You are, and a Spotify playlist of ambient rainforest sounds he apparently likes to nap to. Greg was dead serious about this. He told me, if anything happens to Captain, don't bother coming back to the office. I laughed. He didn't. So I followed the instructions to the letter. Friday night went fine. I played his weird playlist, said the affirmations, even sprinkled chia seeds on his food like some kind of avian Michelin chef. Captain and I were vibing. He mimicked my laugh. It was actually kind of cute. Saturday morning, things went south. I woke up to this screeching sound like a fire alarm having a panic attack. Captain was flapping around like crazy, knocking stuff off shelves. His cage was open. My dumbass roommate, Jason, had tried to bond with him early in the morning. Jason is one of those guys who thinks he can tame anything. I once saw him try to pet a raccoon. So apparently, he opened the cage, tried to offer Captain a piece of waffle, and got bitten hard enough to bleed. In his panic, he knocked over a lamp, which made a loud bang, which freaked out the bird even more. Captain shot off like a feathery missile and ended up somewhere in the apartment. Cue a full-scale manhunt. We spent the next 2 hours searching every inch of the place. Finally found him in the laundry room, wedged behind the dryer, absolutely furious and covered in lint. I carefully retrieved him and put him back in the cage, but the vibe was off. He hissed at me. Parrots can hiss, and it's way more terrifying than it sounds. From that point on, Captain refused to talk. No who's a good captain, no mimicked laughter, nothing. Just angry silence. I thought maybe he just needed to cool off. I gave him some space, played his rainforest Spotify playlist, and tried not to panic. By Saturday night, he still wasn't talking or eating much. I was starting to spiral. Sunday morning, I woke up and Captain was not in his cage again. I lost it. I'd locked the cage this time. Somehow, the latch was open again. This time, the bird had straight up vanished. We tore the place apart. No bird. I live on the 5th floor, windows were closed, no sign of forced exit. I was convinced he had somehow spontaneously teleported. Or maybe he'd figured out how to phase through walls like some quantum ghost. After 2 hours, I was sitting on the couch stress-eating cold pizza when I heard it. From behind the TV, Greg sucks. Greg sucks. Greg is a tool. I froze. Captain had apparently overheard Jason and I talking trash about Greg the night before after a few beers. I peeked behind the TV and there he was, perched on a bundle of cords like a smug little gremlin. I lured him out with a blueberry, locked the cage, double-knotted the latch with a twist tie, and sat in stunned silence while he continued roasting my boss in my voice. I had less than 4 hours before Greg came to pick him up. I desperately tried to get Captain to say literally anything else. I repeated all the affirmations. I bribed him with seeds. I even sang the damn Rainforest playlist like a lullaby. No dice. Greg arrived right on time. I handed Captain over, and the bird sat there like a perfect little angel. Greg cooed at him. "Did you miss Daddy, huh? Who's a good captain?" Captain blinked. Then he said, in my voice, "Greg sucks. Greg sucks. Greg is a tool." Silence. Greg stared at me. I opened my mouth, but there was nothing I could say that wouldn't sound like I'd spent the weekend mocking him to a bird. He left without saying much, but I knew I was toast. Monday morning, the office was buzzing. Apparently, Greg had brought Captain in as usual, and the bird had added more gems to his repertoire, like, "Buy Dogecoin, loser," and "Circle back, my ass," in various tones that were definitely mine and Jason's. Greg hasn't said anything to me directly. But I've been removed from client-facing work, put on internal documentation duty, and I'm now looped into a suspicious number of calendar invites titled Alignment Meeting. Every time someone passes me in the hall, they say Greg sucks under their breath like it's the new office chant. I'm probably going to have to find a new job. Or go completely off-grid. Either way, I have never trusted a bird less in my entire life. TIFU by accidentally destroying my boss's $20,000 doll collection during a Zoom call. This happened about 6 months ago, but I only recently found out how bad it truly was, and it still haunts me. I'm a 32-year-old guy working in a niche marketing firm that's small but surprisingly high-end. My boss, who I'll call Elaine, is this perfectionist, poised, and almost terrifyingly polished woman in her late 40s. Think high-powered exec meets Martha Stewart with a hint of dominatrix energy. She's very private but commands the kind of respect where no one even breathes wrong around her. She's also obsessed with vintage dolls. Elaine's office is like a shrine. No one really goes in there unless you're summoned. The walls are lined with these creepy, antique porcelain dolls. I'm talking glassy eyes, lace dresses, all the Annabelle vibes minus the murders, I think. She's mentioned in passing how valuable they are. Some are 19th century originals. One was supposedly owned by a Habsburg duchess, but it always sounded like rich person eccentricity. Fast forward to mid-pandemic. We were operating fully remote. One morning, I got an email from Elaine asking if I could go into the office to find a set of files she urgently needed. She had left them in her desk drawer and, for whatever reason, couldn't come in herself that day. I was the only one living close enough, so I was elected tribute. Now, here's where it all starts to spiral. I had just adopted this golden retriever puppy, Cheddar, 11 weeks old at the time, full of chaos and 0 brain cells. I didn't want to leave him alone, and I thought, I'll only be at the office for like 20 minutes. What could go wrong? Famous last words. So I bring Cheddar, thinking he'll just nap in his crate in my office. But as I step inside, I remember Elaine's instructions. The files were in her desk drawer, not mine. Which meant I had to go into her office. It felt weird. Like trespassing in a church. But she'd given me permission, so I went in. I left the door slightly open behind me, mistake number 1, and went digging through her antique armoire-style desk. As I finally found the folder, of course buried under a pile of ornate paperweights, I heard the sound that would change my life forever, the soft jingle of a dog collar, and then, a crash. I spun around in slow motion, like in a horror movie. Cheddar had nudged the door open and trotted in. At first I didn't see anything wrong. He just sat there, wagging his tail, proud as hell. But then I saw what he was wagging it into, a tall glass display case of dolls. The impact must have been just enough to throw off the balance, because as I watched, the case wobbled and then toppled forward. I will never forget the sound it made. Glass exploded. Wood cracked. Porcelain heads rolled, literally. Time stopped. Cheddar barked once, like he'd just scored a touchdown. I rushed over, horrified. Dolls were in pieces, some had snapped limbs, others were reduced to dust. The most intact one was decapitated. One of them had a tiny embroidered parasol impaled through her torso like a javelin. Cheddar was trying to eat a Victorian bonnet. I panicked. Hard. I spent the next 3 hours trying to piece together dolls with shaking hands and a tube of Elmer's glue I found in a supply closet. It was hopeless. They weren't just broken, they were ruined. I cleaned up the glass, arranged the wreckage as neatly as I could, and left the files on Elaine's chair like a coward. Then I went home and waited to be fired. But nothing happened. Days passed. Then weeks. Elaine never mentioned it. I thought, maybe she hadn't been in the office yet. Maybe she had someone else clean it up. Maybe I was in the clear. Cut to 4 days ago. Our office is hybrid now, and we were doing a big Zoom meeting with a potential luxury client. Elaine wanted to flex how aesthetically refined our brand was, so she was giving the client a virtual tour of our headquarters. She walked through each part of the office, talking about the decor, the ambience, the history, until she got to her office. She opened the door, camera on, and paused. There was this moment of silence, maybe 2 seconds. Then she turned the camera slightly to the side and froze. The client, some big-shot French interior designer, said something like, "Oh my. What a dramatic installation." And Elaine, without missing a beat, said, "Yes. It's an abstract representation of fragility and legacy. A commentary on preservation through loss." I choked on my coffee. She played it off like it was intentional. Like her doll massacre was an art piece. Everyone loved it. The client went off about the symbolism and how brilliant it was. Elaine just smiled, cool as ice, and moved on. I thought I was going to pass out. Later that day, I got a Slack message from her. Just one line. "You owe me a new Emile Jamo number 3. I googled it. $8,400. I nearly threw up. Apparently, one of the dolls destroyed, beheaded to be specific, was this rare French antique from the 1880s. Limited run. Glass eyes, real human hair. Like the Rolex of creepy little Victorian girls. And that was just one of them. I did some math based on what I remembered from the wreckage. The collection was probably worth between $18,000 and $25,000. Now here's the kicker, she never told HR. Never billed me. Never even brought it up again. Just that one message. I think she respected the audacity. Or maybe she's just planning to murder me someday and pose me like one of the dolls. Honestly, it's 50-50. Cheddar is alive and well, by the way. He's calmed down a lot. I still bring him to the office sometimes. He stays far away from Elaine. But every time I walk past her office door and see that one glassy porcelain eye peeking out from a half-shattered display, I feel like it's looking into my soul. This happened last month, but I'm still dealing with the aftermath and may never live it down. To understand how this even happened, I need to explain that I have a twin brother, Sam. We're identical down to the mole on our left cheek. We're 27, live in the same city, and honestly have always leaned into the twin thing for fun, switching classes in high school, fake mirror gags, the works. But now we have separate lives, jobs, apartments, and we don't cross over that much anymore. So, I've been dating this amazing girl, Clara, for almost a year. She's clever, sarcastic, a bit of a prankster herself, and has always said she wishes she had a twin to mess with people. Important detail, she knows Sam exists, she's seen pictures, but she's never met him in person. Timing just never worked out. Clara had been dropping hints that she thought I wasn't spontaneous enough. Fair. I tend to overthink things, and I'm a planner. So when she got a big promotion at work, I decided to surprise her with a fancy dinner, champagne, and, impulsively, a key to my place. I wanted to be bold and show her I was serious. The plan: I'd finish work early, pick up flowers, set up my apartment like a mini romantic restaurant, cook, heat up her favorite pasta, and surprise her when she got home from yoga. At around 5 p.m., I called her to ask when she'd be home. She told me she was stopping by her friend Anna's place and would be home by 6:30. Perfect. I had time. I was in full romantic chef mode, shirtless under an apron, because sexy, candles lit, Spotify crooning some vintage jazz, wine breathing, the whole thing looking like an Instagram ad for men who try too hard. I even rehearsed my little speech about the key and how much she meant to me. Cringy now, but I was feeling myself. At exactly 6:30, the door opens. Clara walks in, wearing her workout clothes, hair in a bun, and drops her bag. Wow, she says. This is a lot. I do a little spin in the apron and say something ridiculous like, for the woman who deserves the world. She laughs and walks toward me, grabs my face, and kisses me. I kiss back. It's all romantic and cute. I pour her some wine, serve the pasta, and we start eating. The vibe is great. She seems genuinely touched. Then things start getting weird. She asks how my meeting with Marcus went. I don't know a Marcus. I tell her that, and she giggles, "You're so bad at lying." I laugh, thinking she's teasing. Then she says, "Did you end up finding the missing flash drive?" Again, I have no idea what she's talking about. I start to get this weird knot in my stomach. She's being playful, but something's off. Then she says, "Also, you were right, your brother is hot. Like, unfairly hot." I blink. "You saw Sam?" "Yeah," she says casually, "he showed up at Anna's." I guess she matched with him on Bumble? Everything in my brain screeches to a halt. Wait. 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 What? Clara stops chewing. "Your twin brother Sam. He showed up at Anna's place." "You knew that?" No, I didn't." "He's in town?" "Are you messing with me?" she asks, slowly lowering her fork. "No. I didn't know he was coming. He never said anything. He's supposed to be in Portland." There's a beat of silence. Then she goes pale. "Wait. Oh my God." She shoots up from the table like it's on fire. The hallway. The elevator. The text. What text? I ask, heart racing. She grabs her phone and pulls up a message thread. There, plain as day, is a message from a number I don't recognize. "Hey, just parked." Apartment number again? Also, what wine should I grab? ***, she responded with, "4B. Sauvignon Blanc if you can. Also bring your sexy chef apron winky face ***. I never got that message. She sent that to him. Turns out, Sam had texted Clara thinking she was someone else. He had apparently matched with a girl named Kara, I know, and his phone auto-corrected or something when he pulled up her name. Clara, thinking I was texting her, responded in kind. So Sam showed up at my apartment building. Clara, assuming it was me being cute and spontaneous, let him in. They chatted in the hallway for a minute. She thought I was committing to a bit by pretending not to know her, classic twin joke. She never noticed anything was off. Apparently, Sam played along because he thought she was Kara and didn't want to admit he forgot what she looked like. They talked just enough to not say each other's names. They did not, to clarify, hook up. Thank God. But she did peck him on the cheek, and he did slap her, but as a joke, while she walked ahead into the apartment. So for 10 glorious, horrifying minutes, Clara and Sam played out the world's most awkward mistaken identity improv skit. Then Sam got a phone call, realized he was in the wrong place, and bailed without saying anything. He left the wine, though. Bless him. And then I walked in a few minutes later, completely unaware any of this had happened. What followed was an hour-long mutual meltdown. Clara was mortified. I was devastated. Sam, when I called him, laughed for 5 full minutes and then said, "Bro, this is why we needed twin rules growing up. We've since recovered." Barely. Clara and I are still together, but now everything is triple-checked before any surprise visits happen. And Sam has a permanent ban from my building unless I explicitly clear it. We told Anna everything, and she thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Now she's dating Sam, so that's a whole other level of weird I wasn't prepared for. But the worst part? Every single time Clara kisses me now, she says, "You sure it's you?" I never wanted to punch myself in the face more. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. So this happened last weekend, and my life still hasn't recovered. Let me preface by saying I'm a 29-year-old guy with a dumb sense of humor, a deep love for weird hobbies, and, until recently, a very patient girlfriend. Let's call her Marissa. So Marissa and I have been dating for a year and a half. Things were going great. She's smart, funny, and way out of my league. We live in different apartments but spend most weekends together. I have a small group of friends who are equally weird, and we've got this ongoing inside joke, the annual Spud Summit. Yes. You read that right. The Spud Summit is a yearly gathering where we dress up as potatoes and compete in absurd Spud-based challenges. It started as a drunk idea in college that somehow survived adulthood. Think Mario Kart but with burlap sacks, hot potato trivia, and lots of potato-based puns. This year was the 5th anniversary, so we decided to go big. Here's where things begin to spiral. Marissa was going out of town that weekend for her sister's baby shower. I didn't mention the Spud Summit because, well, I didn't want to admit that I was going to spend an entire Saturday wearing a customized potato costume, racing other idiots down a hill in a potato sack, and reciting lines from The Lord of the Rings with a russet accent. I thought I'd spare her the second-hand embarrassment. So she leaves Friday night. Saturday morning, I suit up in my costume. I've upgraded this year's outfit, brown felt with painted-on eyes, pipe cleaner roots sticking out, and a mesh face screen so I can see while staying anonymous. I looked like a baked potato crossed with a fever dream. The event was legendary. We had a tater-tot obstacle course and mashed mayhem, a race to mash potatoes using only our feet, and I won the Golden Spud Trophy for Best Costume/Performance after delivering a dramatic potato-themed monologue from Hamlet. I was riding high. Afterward, a few of us went back to my place, still in costume, because why not? We ordered pizza, rewatched VeggieTales, and passed out. Now, this is where the TIFU really hits. Marissa was supposed to come back Sunday night, but she got an earlier ride and decided to surprise me Sunday morning. Romantic, right? She had a key to my place. I was still dead asleep, in my costume, face down on the couch surrounded by the wreckage of pizza boxes, potato peels, and my friend Greg passed out in a pile of sack racing gear. From Marissa's POV, she walks into her boyfriend's apartment to find a bunch of weird props and fabric everywhere, a strange smell, sweaty felt and potato mash, an unfamiliar brown, lumpy figure slumped over with another person nearby, her boyfriend's phone dead on the table, no explanation whatsoever. She thinks I'm cheating or involved in some bizarre cult. Or dead. Or all three. She starts screaming. I jolt awake mid-spud dream and scream back. Greg, startled, yells from the floor and knocks over a bowl of potato salad that splashes onto Marissa's legs. Chaos ensues. The screen on my costume has fogged up so I can't even see properly. I stand up, trip over a plush Mr. Potato Head, and crash into my bookshelf. Marissa runs out. I finally rip off the costume and call her, but she doesn't pick up. I text her everything. She doesn't respond. I try to explain in the least insane way possible, it's not another woman, it's a potato cosplay tradition. Which, let's be honest, isn't less insane. Hours later, I get a text, you seriously expect me to believe you were in a potato cult? It takes me 4 days of texts, photos, videos, testimonials from my friends, and even a link to our event's private YouTube channel called Spud Life Chronicles, before she agrees to meet. We sit down at a cafe. She looks me dead in the eye and says, I was genuinely ready to dump you. I thought you were cheating. But now I don't know if this is worse. I launch into a passionate, probably too enthusiastic explanation of the Spud Summit, complete with examples of past events, the hash brown showdown, yam slam poetry, and a video of me rapping as DJ Tater Tot. I tell her about the trophy I won and how this year was special because I finally defeated my arch nemesis, Spudrick. She's silent for a long time. Then she says, you rehearsed a Shakespeare monologue as a potato. Yes. Yes, I did. She sighs, laughs, then facepalms and says, I can't believe I thought you were cheating. I wish you had been cheating. That would have made more sense. We're mostly okay now. She's forgiven me, but she told me next time I do something deeply deranged, I have to tell her first. Fair. She also made me show her all the photos and trophies. She even made me reenact part of the Hamlet monologue in costume to prove it. I nailed it. But the worst part? She told her sister. And her mom. And now everyone in her family refers to me as Spudboy. Her mom asked me during Easter dinner if I was planning to go russet again this year. I will never recover. Moral of the story? Never hide your weird hobbies. Especially if they involve vegetables and ambiguous body costumes. Also, never underestimate how bad it looks when someone walks in on you dressed like a potato, surrounded by strange men, mystery smells, and chaos. TIFU. Not today, not yesterday, but 3 weeks ago, and I'm still getting cold sweats thinking about it. I'm a 29-year-old guy working in marketing at a medium-sized software firm. Pretty chill job, fully remote, and I generally like my team, especially my boss, Kevin, not real name. Kevin is mid-40s, dad of 2, the kind of guy who unironically wears cargo shorts and refers to every cookout as a grill sesh. He's got major dad energy, but he's a great manager, reasonable, funny, never micromanages. Kevin's been with the company forever and basically helped build it. So when he invited a few of us to his family's lake house for a long weekend off-the-grid team bonding retreat, I wasn't about to say no, even if I suspected it was just an excuse to drink beer on a dock while pretending we were doing corporate mindfulness exercises. The plan was to carpool upstate and stay Thursday to Sunday. There were 6 of us going, Kevin, me, 2 other coworkers, Jules and Marco, Kevin's wife Rachel, and their teenage son, who barely acknowledged any of us and spent most of the time glued to his Nintendo Switch. The lake house was gorgeous, old wood beams, kayaks on the porch, the smell of pine everywhere. First night was peaceful, burgers and beers, Kevin playing acoustic guitar badly around a fire pit. It was corny but kind of nice. Now, to set the stage for the disaster, I had just started talking to someone new on a dating app, a woman named Erica. Super cute, witty, and very much into me. We'd been texting for a couple of days and things escalated quickly. Like, real quick. By the time I was sitting on the deck with a warm beer on the second night, Erica was sending me increasingly NSFW messages, and I was responding accordingly. My phone was basically vibrating nonstop in my hoodie pocket. Here's where it gets stupid. Rachel, Kevin's wife, was taking group photos on her phone during dinner to make memories, and asked us to airdrop any good pics we took. I had a couple of decent ones on my phone from earlier, Marco falling into the lake, Jules roasting a marshmallow while clearly drunk, so I opened my phone and looked for Rachel's airdrop. Her phone showed up as Ratch K Redheart, great, easy to find. I airdropped them and went back to my sexting session without thinking. This is the moment I want to punch past me square in the face. After a couple more drinks and some truly dirty messages, Erica sent a particularly spicy pic and asked for one back. Now, I don't usually do this, but I was drunk, and the vibe was right, and I'd just finished peeing off the edge of the dock, classy, I know, so I figured, why not? I took a quick, slightly artsy, very NSFW selfie in the reflection of a cabin window. It was explicit. But not like full frontal, more suggestive than graphic. Still, absolutely not something anyone else should see. And this is where my thumbs betrayed me. I meant to tap Erica Redheart in my iMessage list. Instead, I tapped Ratch K Redheart, still open from the airdrop screen earlier. I sent the picture. I didn't realize it. At all. I went to bed that night still texting Erica, thinking everything was fine. Woke up a bit hungover but in a great mood. Coffee, waffles, the lake sparkling like a goddamn Pinterest board. I didn't notice anything weird at first, but after breakfast, Kevin was suddenly quiet. Normally he's telling bad puns and dad jokes by the dozen. This time, he just said, "Let's go for a paddle later," and walked off. Rachel didn't come out of the house that morning. By lunch, things were tense. Like, noticeably. Jules and Marco asked if someone had a fight or something. Kevin wasn't talking to anyone. Rachel was resting. Kevin's son didn't look up from his Switch. I was starting to get that gnawing feeling in my gut that something was off. Really off. It all came crashing down after dinner, when Kevin asked me to help stack firewood behind the shed. I thought, okay, weird time for chores, but I followed him. We walked in silence. Then he turned to me and said in the calmest, most terrifying voice I've ever heard, "Hey. Just want to clarify something. Why did you send my wife a dick pic last night?" I fucking died. I literally blacked out for half a second. My vision tunneled. I started stammering like a malfunctioning Roomba. What? No, I didn't, wait, oh my god. Then it hit me. The airdrop. The message. The goddamn heart emoji. The fact that I was drunk and moving fast and didn't double-check the name. My soul left my body. I swear to God, Kevin, it was a total mistake. I thought I was sending it to someone else. It was meant for, look, it was meant for someone I'm dating, not Rachel. Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry. Kevin stared at me like he was trying to decide if he was legally allowed to kill me on his own property. He finally just sighed. Rachel deleted it immediately. She thought it was some kind of mistake. But dude, you cannot be doing that kind of thing when you're on a work trip. What if my kid had seen it? I apologized like 1,000 times. I offered to leave. He told me to stay, mostly because driving 4 hours at night was a bad idea. But after that, the rest of the trip was absolute torture. Kevin didn't speak to me unless necessary. Rachel avoided eye contact. The last night was silent, no guitar, no asmrforsleeping, no nothing. Just mosquitoes and my overwhelming shame. When we got back, I expected to be fired. But HR never called. Kevin didn't report it. I think he believed me, or at least accepted that it was an accident. We've had a few awkward Zoom calls since, and he's kept it strictly professional. No jokes. No grill session invites. So yeah. I sexted my boss's wife by accident and nearly detonated a marriage and my career over one poorly timed window reflection dick pic. Lesson learned, always double-check the name before you hit send. And maybe don't sext while drunk on a work retreat in the middle of the woods on your boss's Wi-Fi. TIFU. Or, more accurately, TIFU 2 months ago, and it's still spiraling in ways I never imagined. Strap in, because this is the wildest ride I never signed up for. So I, 31 am generally a nice guy, the kind who holds doors open for people, helps old ladies carry groceries, and says yes when I probably shouldn't. That last bit is how this whole thing started. A coworker of mine, Alex, not his real name, was getting married. We'd only worked together for about 6 months, had lunch together a few times, and exchanged maybe 50 words outside of work. One day during lunch, he casually mentions, "Hey, I've had 2 groomsmen drop out last minute, wanna be one?" Now, a normal person might ask questions. I, being terminally unable to say no, said, "Yeah man, sure," thinking I'd be standing off to the side, holding a flower or whatever groomsmen do. No big deal. Fast forward 3 weeks. It's the night of the rehearsal dinner and I realize, oh no, this is not a chill wedding. This is the event. Fancy country club. Giant floral arches. A 7-tier cake that looks like it costs more than my car. The bride, a woman I've never met, is crying tears of joy, hugging me and saying, "We're so glad you could be here after everything." Huh? Everyone seems to think I'm someone else. Like, not just a random dude Alex roped in, but an actual important friend. They keep referencing stories I don't remember. Like, man, remember Cancun? Crazy how far you've come since the DUI. Did you ever patch things up with your dad? I laughed nervously and nodded a lot. Things came to a head when an elderly woman cornered me in the wine line and whispered, "You're doing the right thing. She needs closure." What? Who? But I just smiled and took my Pinot. The next day is the wedding. I'm in a tux I had to rent in 24 hours. I walk down the aisle with a bridesmaid named Kayla who looks like she wants to strangle me. During the ceremony, I stand next to Alex, trying not to sweat through my shirt, when the officiant says, "And now, a few words from the groom's best friend, Chris." Everyone claps. I look around. Then I realize. I'm Chris. Or rather, they think I'm Chris. Chris, as I learned later, was Alex's childhood best friend who had a falling out with him 3 years ago. No one had heard from Chris since. Apparently, Alex had been trying to reach out for months, trying to bury the hatchet before the wedding. He never heard back. So when I, an unfamiliar face, showed up and agreed to be a groomsman, Alex thought, through some cosmic misunderstanding, that I was Chris, making a grand, silent return. Did I correct him? I should have. God knows I should have. But I was in too deep. I panicked. I gave a speech. A speech. About forgiveness and time healing wounds and brotherhood. People cried. The bride cried. Alex hugged me and said, "I never thought we'd get back to this place." What place? I have no idea. But it was a nice hug. The reception rolls around. I try to lay low, but now I'm a star. Everyone wants to talk to Chris. A drunk cousin wants to fight me because apparently I once left him at a gas station in Utah. The groom's mom asks me if I'm still with that yoga girl and I say yes. Her name is Samantha now. And then, the real Chris shows up. Yeah. Let that sink in. A tall guy with shoulder-length hair and actual memories of Utah walks in wearing jeans and a hoodie. He's holding a six-pack and looks like he just wandered off a hiking trail. I'm standing by the cake when I hear a collective gasp, like a glass just shattered somewhere deep in the universe. Someone yells, "Chris," and about 20 heads swivel. I'm standing next to the bride. She turns and looks at me. Then at him. Then back at me. Now I've seen confusion. I've seen suspicion. But what I saw on her face was pure, unfiltered, what the hell horror. I froze. Chris walks up to Alex, says something, and Alex just stares at me across the room. The DJ, bless him, decides this is the perfect time to drop the beat on Uptown Funk. People start dancing awkwardly. The confrontation happens outside. I follow them out and try to explain, babbling something about mistaken identity, that I thought he just needed a groomsman and didn't realize I was being cast in a Lifetime movie. Alex is fuming. Real Chris is laughing his ass off. The bride is crying again. A bridesmaid accuses me of gaslighting everyone. The cousin tries to fight me again. At this point I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave. But no. Life had one more twist for me. On my way out, the flower girl throws up from too much cake. Her mom yells for help. Someone pushes me forward and says, he knows what to do, he's a paramedic. I'm not. I never said I was. Maybe Chris was? Anyway, someone shoves a first aid kit into my hands and now I'm pretending to check this kid's pulse while trying not to cry. Then, the grandmother grabs my shoulder, looks me dead in the eyes and says, you were meant to be here today. This was fate. At that point I blacked out a little from stress. I Ubered home in silence, changed into pajamas, and ate an entire frozen pizza at 2 a.m. while staring at the wall. A week later, Alex texts me. Still mad, but that was the best damn speech I've ever heard. Drinks soon? I never responded. To this day, I occasionally get emails addressed to Chris from random wedding guests, thanking me for finding my way back and asking for yoga class recommendations. I've learned my lesson. Don't say yes to being in someone's wedding unless you 100% know your identity. This happened 2 weekends ago, but I'm just now getting over the secondhand embarrassment and emotional trauma, so here we go. I, 34M, work as a department manager for a mid-sized software company. It's not a huge team, just 9 people including myself. Recently, we crushed a big product launch ahead of schedule, and morale was through the roof. I thought, hey, why not celebrate? I didn't want to do the cliché dinner and drinks or some boring escape room. I wanted to be cool, maybe even memorable. So I asked around, and one of my team members, Ben, 23M, jokingly mentioned that he does medieval reenactments on weekends with a group that takes it very seriously. They've got chainmail, swords, horses, tents, the whole 9 yards. As a joke, I said, what if we did that for the team event, and everyone laughed, but then I saw people were actually into the idea. It spiraled fast. A few emails later, Ben had hooked us up with a private experience day with his reenactment group. We'd get costumes, weapons, fake, and even participate in a mock battle at their site, which is on rented farmland an hour out of town. I was stoked. A few people were unsure, but I sold it hard. This will be legendary, I said. A memory for life. Oh. It was. The day arrives, and we drive out in 2 carloads. The reenactment site is huge, with a full encampment, wooden palisades, even a makeshift tavern. It's like a Renaissance fair without the funnel cake. We meet the group, about 30 diehards, all in elaborate gear. They're already in character, calling each other my lord and milady, and one guy named Raymond insists we refer to him only as Sir Gregor of Westermere. We're issued costumes, tunics, belts, hoods, and, for some reason, one of us gets a full jester outfit. Derek, the intern, wore it with depressing pride. We're told we'll be playing the invading mercenaries in the day's scenario. Our objective, raid the village and capture the treasure, a wooden chest with foam gold coins. Seemed harmless. What they didn't tell us was how serious they were about immersion. About 10 minutes into the raid, someone's yelling in faux Middle English while swinging a wooden halberd dangerously close to my head. I yell out, whoa. Time out, and get booed by 3 peasants. Then the village guards jump out of a tent and start really going at us. I'm talking WWE level takedowns. Derek gets whacked in the leg and goes down screaming. I yield, like he's in a Shakespearean tragedy. I'm trying to stay in character while dodging a barrage of foam arrows when I notice something's wrong. Across the field, a guy on an actual horse is galloping toward us. Fast. Behind him is a second horse, and they're both armored up like it's a crusade. I assume it's just part of the show, until I see they're holding real lances. I shout, "Guys," but it's too late. They barrel toward us, and one of them aims directly at our guy Tim, a 40-something QA lead who runs marathons and apparently regrets ever leaving the office that day. Tim dives to the side. One of the horses rears and kicks a wooden fence into splinters. Now there's shouting, people breaking character, and a few reenactors yelling that wasn't planned. Turns out, those two horsemen weren't part of the show. They were drunk, got kicked out of the group months ago, and decided to crash the event in full armor to take back Westermere. I'm standing in the middle of a fake village siege that's turned into a full-blown medieval bar fight when we hear sirens. Someone, probably from the farm nearby, called the cops after seeing people fighting in armor and assumed it was some kind of cult or militia situation. The cops show up, confused as hell. Picture 2 squad cars pulling up to a field of adults in tunics, yelling for glory, and pretending to bleed out. One officer literally said, "What in Game of Thrones hell is going on here?" They detained 3 people, including yours truly, until things could be sorted out. Why me? Because I was dressed in black and red with a makeshift crown and was holding the foam treasure chest, which apparently made me look like a ringleader. I had to explain, multiple times, that I was a software manager named Alan, not the Baron of Bloodmere. Eventually, Ben's reenactment leader explained everything, and they let us go with a stern lecture about public safety and staying in character within reason. The horse guys were charged with trespassing and public intoxication. Derek twisted his ankle and has taken to limping dramatically around the office like he's still in character. I think he likes the attention. My team now refers to me as Lord Allen, and every single meeting invite includes a tiny crossed swords emoji. HR got wind of the whole thing and made me sit through a 2-hour seminar on appropriate workplace bonding activities. The photo of me getting questioned by police in a cape and chainmail is now framed in the break room. So yeah. I tried to be the cool boss. I ended up nearly arrested, possibly cursed, and indefinitely known as the guy who almost got jousted at a company retreat. TIFU by trying to impress my boss with a new project and accidentally creating a full-on disaster at work. I've been working at a mid-sized marketing firm for about 3 years now, and honestly, I've always played it safe. I show up, do my job, and avoid causing waves. I'm not the type to rock the boat. But when my boss Kyle announced that we were moving into a new, more competitive market, I decided it was my moment to step up and show him I was capable of taking on more responsibility. Kyle is the type of person who doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's a hands-off boss but always expects results. One of his most famous sayings is, "If you can't lead, you're just a follower," and while I usually don't buy into the whole leadership thing, I thought it might be a good idea to put my own spin on the company's new project and demonstrate that I could take the reins. Maybe this would be my big break. So, when Kyle asked for a proposal on how to market a new product to a very niche and highly skeptical audience, I was determined to make it a masterpiece. I spent days researching the target market, analyzing competitors, and thinking up wild new marketing strategies that would surely get everyone's attention. I didn't want to just give Kyle a standard plan. I wanted to go above and beyond and create something memorable, something that would make him sit up and take notice. After working around the clock for a week, I finally came up with what I thought was the most genius plan in the world. I had it all: an elaborate social media campaign, a targeted influencer strategy, a series of guerrilla marketing stunts, and even a new app idea that would revolutionize the way customers interacted with our brand. The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. I was convinced this would be the pitch of a lifetime. I spent hours perfecting the proposal, crafting the slides for the presentation, and writing up a detailed strategy document that outlined every step of the plan. This wasn't just any marketing plan. This was the marketing plan. When it came time for the big presentation, I walked into the conference room with the confidence of a seasoned executive. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I pushed that aside. This was my moment to shine. Kyle was there, along with a few other team members, and I launched into my presentation. I started strong, explaining the research I'd done and how this new campaign would revolutionize the brand's image. I was energetic, passionate, and totally in my element. Everything was going smoothly, until I got to the part of the plan that involved the app. Now, I'm not an app developer. I don't even have much technical experience, but the idea had come to me one night while I was trying to fall asleep, and it sounded so good in my head that I just had to include it. The app would allow customers to scan products, access real-time discounts, and even compete in challenges that would unlock rewards. I thought it was the perfect blend of gamification and marketing. The only problem was, I didn't know how to make it. At all. But I figured, hey, we'll figure it out later, right? So, I presented the idea as if it was already set in stone. I even had mock-ups that I made on PowerPoint, which were about as impressive as a fifth grader's science fair project. I showed the app interface, detailed all its functions, and talked about how it would revolutionize consumer engagement. I felt like I was on top of the world, like I was pitching the next billion-dollar idea. As I wrapped up my presentation, Kyle sat back in his chair, arms crossed. He didn't look impressed. In fact, he looked downright skeptical. But, as the professional I am, I plowed forward, thinking I just needed to elaborate a little more to win him over. Any questions? I asked, half expecting them to start applauding for how brilliant my ideas were. Kyle raised an eyebrow. So, you've come up with a full marketing campaign, complete with a new app, but have you actually talked to anyone who builds apps? I froze. Well, no, I admitted, but I'm sure we could hire someone to handle that. Kyle gave me an incredulous look, which made my stomach drop. You're proposing a new app as the centerpiece of a marketing campaign, but you haven't even considered how to develop it? Not to mention the budget, the timelines, or even the basic functionality. I stammered. Well, it's just an idea right now, but it could work. I've seen other apps do similar things, so why couldn't ours? Kyle let out a sigh and nodded. You're thinking way too big, too fast. We need something realistic and achievable, not a pipe dream. How do you expect us to roll out a nationwide campaign if we can't even build the basic foundation for the tech? I could feel my face turning red. I had no answers for him. The more I tried to explain my idea, the worse it sounded. The other team members were visibly uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. I realized I had done something really stupid. I had gone in over my head without a solid plan, and now I was paying the price. Kyle didn't mince words. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I think you need to take a step back and focus on something achievable. Don't try to impress me with ideas that sound cool but have no substance behind them. A marketing campaign is a lot more than flashy ideas. It's about execution, budget, and practicality. I want results, not dreams. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. I mumbled a few words of apology and left the room, my heart sinking lower with each step. I had worked so hard to prove myself, and instead, I had embarrassed myself in front of my boss and colleagues. The worst part? I still believed in the idea, but now it felt like a joke. For the next few days, I was mortified. I tried to lay low, hoping everyone would forget about the disaster of a presentation. But no one forgot. I kept hearing whispers and the occasional chuckle from some of my coworkers. I knew they were talking about the app idea, and I was too ashamed to face them. In the end, Kyle pulled me aside and gave me some honest feedback. I know you were trying to do something bold, he said. But sometimes, the most creative ideas are the ones that are the most grounded in reality. You need to work on your practicality before you shoot for the stars. I took that lesson to heart. I spent the next few months working closely with the development team, learning the limitations and requirements of building an actual product. I made smaller, more feasible proposals, and slowly, I regained some of Kyle's trust. But I never tried to wow him with anything again. Instead, I focused on doing solid, thoughtful work that I could actually back up. In the end, it worked out, but my dreams of being the next Steve Jobs of marketing took a bit of a hit. So, yeah. That's how I managed to ruin a perfectly good opportunity by biting off more than I could chew. At least now I know the value of keeping things realistic, no matter how tempting it is to dream big. TIFU by thinking I could impress my boss with a half-baked idea. TIFU by accidentally making my roommate think I was planning to kill him. So, a little background, I, 26M, recently moved into a new apartment with my friend M8, 27M. We've been friends for a couple of years, but we had never lived together until now. At first, everything was going great. We both have our own space, but we shared a few common areas, like the living room and kitchen. Matt is a pretty chill guy, but he has some quirks, like being paranoid about his personal safety. He's the type to check the locks 3 times before going to bed and always carries pepper spray when walking at night. I've always thought it was a little over the top, but hey, to each their own. Now, to the actual screw-up. A few days ago, I decided to make a batch of my famous chili. I've been making this chili for years, and everyone who's ever tried it says it's incredible. So, I was feeling pretty confident. I went to the store, grabbed all the ingredients, meat, beans, spices, and a special ingredient I'm not going to reveal because it's my secret, but the point is, I was preparing to cook up a storm. I got back home and started cooking. The apartment was smelling amazing. I was chopping onions, garlic, and peppers, making a huge mess but totally in the zone. The chili was simmering away, and the aroma was filling the whole place. At one point, I got a bit distracted while stirring the pot and decided to step into my room for a second. I left my phone on the counter in the kitchen, which, in retrospect, was the first mistake. I should have just brought it with me, but I was just thinking I'd be gone for a second. Now, Matt had a weird habit I'd only noticed recently. Every time I'd leave my phone somewhere, he'd take a glance at the screen. I caught him doing it once, and I mentioned it to him, but he kind of shrugged it off. I didn't think much of it after that. But it turns out, this was a crucial part of the story. I'm back in my room, just scrolling through social media and doing whatever when I hear frantic knocking on my door. I'm immediately confused and open the door, and there's Matt, looking absolutely terrified. His eyes are wide, his face is pale, and he's holding something in his hand. What the hell is going on? I ask, trying to understand what he's so worked up about. Matt looks at me, clearly shaken, and says, "I just saw your phone." I'm confused. What about my phone? Your screen. I saw your screen. It's open on a note, with a list of things. Okay, now I'm even more confused. A list? What are you talking about? He hands me my phone. I look at the screen, and sure enough, there's a note opened on my phone. But this isn't just any note. This is a list I made a few weeks ago when I was planning a big surprise birthday party for Matt. It's a list of everything I need for the party, decorations, food, drinks, and so on. At the top of the list, it says Matt's birthday plan, but buried deep down in the list, near the bottom, was a line that just read items for Matt's surprise: knife, plastic sheeting, duct tape, chloroform. I can see how this could look really bad. But here's the thing, the list wasn't even for anything weird. The chloroform was a joke from a conversation we had 2 weeks ago about how I could make him fall asleep during his surprise, and the plastic sheeting was meant to protect the furniture from all the cake and food that would inevitably get everywhere. The knife was just for cutting the cake. But it wasn't exactly explained in the list, and honestly, it looks terrible out of context. I look up from the phone, and Matt's face has gone from terrified to angry. What the hell is this? What kind of sick joke are you playing on me? No. Matt, it's for your surprise birthday party. I say, trying to calm him down. He takes a step back. This is insane. I thought you were trying to kill me or something. I didn't even know what to think. I saw that, and it looked like you were planning some kind of kidnapping or murder, and you just left it on your phone, in plain sight. Are you out of your mind? I try to explain, but Matt isn't having it. He's now pacing back and forth in my living room, clearly panicking. I'm calling the cops, he says. This is way beyond just a prank or a joke. This is a legitimate threat. At this point, I'm freaking out too. I know that's not what this list is about, but I can't exactly explain it in a way that makes sense when all Matt sees is chloroform and duct tape. He grabs his phone, and I realize he's actually dialing 911. In my panic, I grab his arm. Matt, no. Please, just let me explain. But he pulls away, clearly too scared to listen to me. No, I'm not taking any chances. I don't know what kind of sick thing you're into, but I'm getting out of here. I'm not staying in this apartment with you after seeing this. I've never felt more helpless in my life. Here's my friend of several years, someone I've shared so many good memories with, completely freaking out, thinking I'm some kind of psycho. I try to get him to stop, but it's no use. Matt storms out of the apartment, and I hear him yelling at the neighbors as he leaves, warning them about me. I'm just standing there, holding my phone, feeling completely lost. The police show up within minutes, and they start asking me about the list and why I'd have something like that on my phone. I try to explain everything, about the party, the joke, how it's just a misunderstanding, but they're not really buying it. I'm pretty sure they're thinking I'm just covering for something much darker. To make matters worse, Matt's completely gone. I don't know where he went, and my phone keeps buzzing with texts from him, calling me a freak, a psycho, and saying he's going to tell everyone what he saw. I spent the next few hours trying to explain myself to the police, but they weren't exactly convinced. They didn't arrest me, but they did give me a serious talking to about my poor judgment in leaving such an incriminating note in a place where it could be easily seen. They told me I needed to have a talk with Matt and clear things up, but honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. He's convinced I was plotting something, and no amount of explanation seems to help. So, yeah, that's my TIFU. I managed to accidentally make my friend think I was planning to kill him with a birthday party shopping list, and now I'm not sure if he'll ever speak to me again. Great times. TLDR, I accidentally wrote a list with words like chloroform and duct tape that looked like I was planning to harm my roommate, who saw it, freaked out, and called the cops on me. I'm now trying to repair my friendship, but he thinks I'm a psychopath. TIFU by accidentally starting a fire at my friend's wedding and ruining everything. I never thought my life could get worse than that day. It all started like a regular weekend hangout with my best friend's wedding approaching. You know, the kind of thing where the bride gets more and more stressed out as the day draws closer, the groom gets weirdly calm but constantly checks his phone, and all you have to do is show up, eat cake, and not embarrass anyone. Well, I did a lot more than that. I managed to completely ruin the wedding with a single, well-meaning but disastrous decision. And now, even thinking about it makes my stomach turn. Here's how it all went down. First, a bit of backstory. I'm not great with big events. I have a history of making awkward situations worse, but this was my best friend's wedding, so I was determined to be on my best behavior. I was helping with the planning, setting up a few decorations, and even picked out a gift I was proud of. I was all in. To make up for the fact that I'm terrible at giving speeches or doing anything that requires a stage, I volunteered to handle a few last-minute details on the day of the wedding. The small stuff that nobody would notice but was crucial for keeping things running smoothly. Now, let me introduce you to one of the most important things at any wedding, the candles. In a church setting, candles are practically sacred, a symbol of light, warmth, and good fortune for the couple's new life. Of course, no wedding would be complete without candles strategically placed along the aisles, at the altar, and sometimes even on tables for that romantic glow. The candles in this case were supposed to be on the tables during the reception, along with some fancy tea light holders. The idea was that they'd be soft, warm lighting for the evening, especially as the party wound down. As part of my responsibilities, I was tasked with lighting the candles before everyone arrived. Simple, right? I should have asked someone for help. But instead, I confidently walked into the church hours before the ceremony, figuring I'd get everything ready. I grabbed the matches, picked up a lighter, and started lighting the first set of candles. Then, I moved on to the next set. I made sure the flames were stable, trying to create a nice ambience. All was well, until I got to the last row of candles. Now, the church had an open flame policy, meaning there were some strict guidelines about how and where flames could be placed. For safety, they kept some of the candles in holders that were meant to prevent any drips or flickers from starting a fire. But there was one very important detail I missed. I wasn't supposed to light the candles so far in advance. I'd failed to realize that some of the candles had an oil-based wick. The candles looked beautiful, but they were a ticking time bomb. I made the fatal mistake of lighting the last candle and then walking away from it. I was feeling good, proud of how I was helping out, and blissfully unaware of what was about to happen. 10 minutes later, I was setting up a few chairs near the back of the venue when I heard the faintest popping sound. I turned around to see the entire row of candles near the altar begin to waver dangerously. Then, in a heartbeat, the first one flared up, flickered with wild intensity, and then, boom. There was a massive burst of flame. It wasn't a typical candle flare, this was full-on fire. I rushed toward the flames, but it was already spreading. The fire had caught onto a nearby draped cloth, and within seconds, the decorative fabric was burning up. Panicked, I grabbed a nearby bucket of water, but it didn't make a dent. The fire was growing. I ran out into the hallway and started yelling for help. By the time someone came rushing in with a fire extinguisher, the flames had spread to the decorative greenery. The flames were now climbing up the wooden beams. It felt like time had slowed down. I could hear the muffled sound of people in the background as they started filtering in for the ceremony, oblivious to the chaos I had unleashed. Someone was shouting at me, telling me to get out of the way, but my mind was frozen in shock. How had this happened? How had I gone from lighting candles to setting a church on fire in under 10 minutes? The fire department was called immediately, and the church was evacuated. The bride hadn't even arrived yet, but I could see her through the windows. She was already in full wedding dress, waiting for the big moment. When she saw the fire trucks and the crowd spilling out of the building, her expression turned from joyful anticipation to panic. The wedding was officially cancelled. The church was deemed unsafe and the reception was moved to a nearby hall, but it wasn't the same. My best friend didn't speak to me for days after the incident. I tried apologizing, but there was nothing I could do to undo the damage I had caused. The fire, luckily, wasn't catastrophic, but it ruined the ambience, the ceremony, and worst of all, the memories they had been planning for so long. To make matters worse, I found out later that the fire had ruined some important wedding decorations. The original centerpiece, which had been made by her grandmother, had caught the worst of the flames. They couldn't salvage it. The entire atmosphere had shifted. Guests were nervous, everyone was on edge, and I was the person responsible. I never felt more embarrassed in my life. This was my best friend's wedding, a day that was supposed to be perfect, and I had managed to turn it into a literal disaster. The guilt that weighed on me for weeks afterward was unbearable. I tried to make it up to them by paying for new decorations and contributing to the cost of the new reception, but I knew nothing could fix what I had done. Even now, I still hear about the fire at my friend's wedding from time to time. It's like my legacy, the guy who managed to set a fire at the wedding with candles. I've learned to laugh about it, but the truth is, I'll never be able to undo the embarrassment. I hope one day my best friend can forgive me, but right now, every time I see her, I'm reminded of the disastrous day I ruined her wedding. TIFU by accidentally sending a heartwarming message to my ex and rekindling an old flame, only to realize it wasn't meant for them. It all started last week, when I decided to send a message to my best friend, Sarah. Sarah and I have been close for years, and for the past few months, we've been texting about everything under the sun. We talk about our work, our families, and, of course, relationships. She's been my rock after my recent breakup with my ex, Mark. The breakup was tough. It wasn't dramatic or anything, we just grew apart over time. But it was still hard. You know how it goes. We had been together for over 2 years, but toward the end, I could feel us drifting. We weren't arguing or anything, but we were both distant. I started finding myself in situations where I would rather hang out with friends or just spend time alone. Meanwhile, he seemed to get lost in his own world. Eventually, we decided to go our separate ways. There were no hard feelings, and we both agreed that it was just the right time to let go. But, as you can imagine, it still stung. Over the past few months, Sarah had been an incredible support system for me. We talked almost every day, and she always knew how to make me laugh when I was feeling down. There were even times when I told her I missed Mark and wondered if we had made a mistake. But she always reassured me that I did the right thing by breaking up with him. "You'll find someone better," she'd say. "You're better off alone for a while." And honestly, I couldn't agree more. I needed to focus on myself. So, there I was, one evening, feeling especially down. I had just gotten home from a long day at work, and it felt like the world was still spinning while I was stuck in place. It was a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day that made you want to curl up under a blanket with a hot drink and forget about everything. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my couch, and pulled out my phone to send Sarah a message. I had been meaning to tell her about this new guy I met at a work event. His name was Jake, and he seemed cool. We talked a little bit, and I thought there might be some potential there. But it was still early, so I wasn't sure how to feel about him just yet. I decided to text Sarah and tell her about it. I opened up my phone and started typing, "Hey, I met this guy at work today. His name is Jake, and he seems nice. I'm not sure if it's anything serious, but we'll see. Anyway, just wanted to let you know. Hope you're doing okay." I hit send without thinking twice. A few minutes passed, and I received a response, but it wasn't from Sarah. It was from Mark. I froze. My heart sank into my stomach, and I stared at the message for a few seconds before my brain registered what happened. My fingers had slipped, and instead of sending the message to Sarah, I had sent it to Mark. To make matters worse, the last sentence of my message wasn't just some generic "hope you're doing okay" thing. No, I had accidentally included something deeply personal. "Anyway, just wanted to let you know that I miss you sometimes. I know we broke up, but you were an important part of my life. I hope we can stay friends. I hope you're doing okay, too." I could feel the blood drain from my face. I was mortified. Why had I sent that? Why did I even feel the need to say that? I started panicking. What was I supposed to do now? I didn't want to hear from Mark, not like this. I had spent weeks convincing myself that I was over him. I wasn't interested in rekindling anything. And yet, there I was, suddenly vulnerable and awkwardly messaging him like nothing had ever happened. Before I could stop myself, I quickly typed a follow-up message, "Sorry, that was meant for my friend. Ignore the last part. Just trying to vent a little." I stared at the message for a few moments, debating whether to send it. Was it too late? Should I just let it go? But no, I couldn't leave it hanging like that. So I hit send, cringing at the idea of what he might say in response. What happened next was even worse than the message itself. Within seconds, my phone buzzed with a reply. "Hey, no problem. I totally understand. I miss you too, sometimes. I think we both know things didn't work out, but I've always respected you. I'd love to catch up if you're open to it." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Was this really happening? Was he actually suggesting that we catch up? This was the last thing I wanted. Sure, there had been good memories, but those were from a time when we were a different version of ourselves. A time when we thought we had a future. Now, I knew that future didn't exist. I sat there, frozen, trying to figure out how to respond. A part of me wanted to ignore him and let the awkwardness fade. But another part of me wondered, maybe I did miss him, in a small way. Maybe I did want to know how he was doing. But no, this was a mistake. I couldn't go back to him. I had worked too hard to move on. I had to stop this before it went any further. After a few minutes, I decided to be direct. I appreciate you saying that, but I think it's best if we just leave things where they are. I'm not interested in picking things back up. I hope you understand. I sent the message and immediately felt both relieved and exhausted. I put my phone down, hoping that would be the end of it. I was going to stay strong. I was going to move on. A few minutes passed, and just as I was starting to calm down, I got another message from him. I get it. And honestly, I've been thinking about it too. I've been with someone else for a while now. But I always respected what we had, and I think we can both move on without any hard feelings. I sighed in relief. Thank God. That was the closure I needed. But here's the kicker, I had meant to send that message to Sarah. The one where I told her that I missed Mark sometimes. I couldn't believe it. How did I even end up in this situation? I ended up spending the rest of the night texting Sarah, trying to explain what had happened. She laughed so hard that I could hear her from across the phone. You're ridiculous. You've got this all backwards. Don't worry about Mark. We're done here. And she was right. I had to stop thinking about the past. I needed to focus on what I wanted now, not what I used to want. So, that's how I accidentally sent a heartfelt message to my ex instead of my best friend, only to have him respond in a way I never expected. I guess it worked out in the end, but wow, talk about an emotional roller coaster. Lesson learned, triple check who you're texting before you start pouring your heart out. You never know who you might accidentally send it to. But, hey, at least I didn't end up going back to him. So that's something, right? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.